buy a house, a couple cars in my estate. I've been losing angels, I ain't going to LA. I ain't scared of nothing, I replace it with my faith. I know this being good is what'll stop me being great. Wanna buy a house, a couple cars in my estate. I've been losing angels, I ain't going to LA. I ain't scared of nothing, I replace it with my faith. I know this being good is what'll stop me being great.
35 seconds of logos.
Jeremy hates logos cliche.
Sure, I'm glad Ian Holm is here to remind me of that unpopular trilogy of movies that came out more than 10 years ago.
So I guess I'm supposed to assume that this sin was meant as a joke, but either way, it wasn't funny. Anyway, unpopular? Do you know what that word means? The Lord of the Rings trilogy sure as hell wasn't unpopular.
Peter Jackson only teases dragon even though he knows you bought the ticket expecting to see dragon.
This is actually a very common trope in monster movies, not fully showing the monster, at least not early on. This is done in order to build suspense and your desire to see the monster later on.
This is a lot of exposition even for a Lord of the Rings movie.
Not really. I mean, Fellowship opened on an entirely expositional scene with narration too. This scene is actually a mirror of that.
Began as you might expect.
If he's writing all the to Frodo, why does he need to do the whole "it began in a hole in the ground"?
Because he's writing a book, and even though Frodo is more or less the target audience, he still wants it to be in the form of a legit book.
Oh, hey Frodo, what are you doing in this movie? Not a thing.
Did they just censor the word damn? What the hell?
Dwarf doors are invisible.
Yeah, except when a huge dragon wants to come in.
Okay, funny joke, haha, but you conveniently cut out the part of the scene where Gandalf was talking about the secret door, not the main gate.
If the dwarves spent as much time training to fight dragons as they did singing, this trilogy would be over by now.
Jeremy has the attention span of a toddler with ADHD cliche. What, he was complaining about all the time spent singing. This sin is justified.
It takes 43 minutes for this film's actual adventure to begin, and the first thing they do is go to sleep and tell more boring dwarf stories.
This boring dwarf story is actually a very important piece of background information and characterization for Thorin. Plus, it was not boring at all.
Still a better death scene than Miranda Tate's in Dark Knight Rises.
Jeremy makes a pop culture reference that isn't a sin of the movie cliche.
Even for a kid's movie, this is pretty f***ing ridiculous.
This is ridiculous for a kid's movie? Seriously? Have you never seen a movie with talking animals, or living cars, or any of the other million Disney/Pixar movies?
These ropes aren't remotely tight or secure.
And your point is? You just pointed something out and you're just expecting it to be a sin, but you failed to explain why it's a sin.
They will outrun you.
These are Roscabel rabbits. I'd like to see them try.
On the one hand, this guy just smoked weed, but on the other hand, he knows a lot more about rabbits than I do, so let him go.
So Jeremy sins something he likes cliche?
It's his excessive consumption of mushrooms.
Jeez, the guy smokes weed and does shrooms? I think maybe all it takes to be a wizard in Middle-earth is a drug habit and a robe.
That can't be true, because I've never seen my former roommate perform magic.
Because there is none.
Is Sauron supposed to already be evil here, or is he just a dick?
He's just a dick. Next question.
This always seems to happen. I start playing Final Fantasy VII, but I end up playing Shadow of the Colossus.
Jeremy makes a pop culture reference that isn't a sin of the movie cliche.
So the goblins built this entire collapsible floor just in case somebody came by and wanted to sleep here for a while?
Yes. Next question.
Rings don't land on fingers like this, unless you're in Middle-earth, where it happens in the first movie of every trilogy.
You're failing to understand that the ring is magical and is willing itself to land on people's fingers like this.
How does this blow not take his face right off?
Because it didn't hit his face? What the hell are you on?
Wait, that's the Lonely Mountain? Well, why didn't the Eagles just fly him all the way there? Take him like 15 minutes.
The Eagles didn't want to fly to the Lonely Mountain because they were afraid of being shot down by men, specifically the men of Lake Town.
You are the heir to the throne of Durin.
Man, does anyone in Middle-earth do anything at all without Gandalf putting the idea in their head?
The only reason you're saying this is because we, the audience, have seen so many examples of Gandalf pushing people into something, and the reason for that is because Gandalf is one of the main characters in this story. We only focus on these instances, but they are not the only instances.
The feet of a fire-breathing dragon.
I can't stress enough how much light this conversation sheds on the events we saw in the first film. It's zero.
Actually, it does explain why Thorin decided to take back Erebor. I'm not saying it was necessary for the movie, I'm just saying that Cinemasins is full of shit.
They're run down by a pack of orcs.
You could maybe try calling the Eagles. I mean, It can't have gotten too far away since they just dropped you off a little bit ago. Here's another reason the books don't matter, when the filmmakers can't insert just one sentence explaining why the Eagles could only take them so far. And that's all it would have taken.
Let's take this one thing at a time. First, the Eagles could not take them farther because they didn't want to. The book explains that the Eagles are sentient and are not simply servants for Gandalf. This leads me into my next point, which is that the books absolutely do matter, because that is where you get the explanations for shit like this. Furthermore, how the hell is this an example of the books not mattering? You literally just asked a question. And lastly, you essentially just sin the exact same thing twice to pad the sin count.
He will help us, or he will kill us.
Why does Gandalf waste time acting like the bear beast thing isn't Beorn, the owner of the house they decide to go to in order to seek refuge from the bear beast thing?
Oh, I don't know, Jeremy. Maybe because of exactly what you just said. Beorn is the beast, and they are currently running from the beast. So the dwarves would obviously not want to go to his house if Gandalf revealed this.
You know what would have really helped in this situation? Someone who knows magic.
Dude, since when has Gandalf's magic been powerful enough to stop a mythical fucking bear? Also, they are literally entering a safe house right now, so why are you acting like they need to fight?
This bold guy is a discount Azog. He looks exactly like Azog, but with metal in his flesh.
Where are you getting this pronunciation from? His name is Azog, not Azog.
Is there no way around?
Not unless we go 200 miles north.
Middle-earth uses miles for distance measurement?
Why the hell not? What's the problem with this?
We interrupt this unnecessary Hobbit sequel to bring you The Lost World Jurassic Park.
Jeremy makes a pop culture reference.
Oh, come on. How did Bilbo get access to his sword after being spun into a cocoon? I mean, look at this. Does this look like something anyone would be able to move their arms and legs around in? Also, Bilbo would have had to have easy access to his sword to be able to unsheath it while inside a cocoon, and he clearly didn't have it out when he got caught in the web.
These two sins are literally the exact same sin. How do people not realize that they're padding the sin count?
It's also fortunate that there are all these layers of spiderweb to catch each of the falling dwarves and ease them to the ground, especially considering the spider that Bilbo just stabbed fell down and hit the ground hard.
The reason the spider hit the ground hard was because he was too heavy for the webs to catch him, and they broke during his fall, whereas the dwarves are light enough to be caught on the way down.
Oh, come on, that thing fell and bounced and is definitely lost forever. If you're going to say the ring wants to be found because it has a mind of its own, then it shouldn't ever fly out of his control in the first place.
This sin is incredibly stupid. The ring does want to be found, and that's how Bilbo ends up finding it. As for your claim that it should not have fallen out in the first place, do you see any hands on the ring that could have held onto Bilbo's pocket? No? Okay, so your point is moot.
Oh look, Legolas is in this movie. Is Batman in it too? Or 007?
2 pop culture references in one sin.
Aren't you going to search me? I could have anything down my trousers.
That's a pickup line I have not tried, but I'm going to now.
Jeremy sins something he likes cliche.
Also, why does Legolas give a shit that this dwarf is staring at her?
Because he was just flirting with her, and he loves her? Seriously, it doesn't take a genius to figure this out.
I have walked there sometimes. Beyond the forest and up into the night.
Good God, this movie is 2.5 hours, and now we know why.
Because of this one single scene? How does that make sense?
Is this the unguarded gate that Bolg was talking about? Because this shit is heavily guarded.
You're saying that the gate is heavily guarded, when in reality, it's actually pretty lightly guarded. That's obviously what Bolg was referring to, and that's why they attacked this gate specifically.
So how convenient is it that she pulls off this badass shot instead of killing him, since Legolas wants to keep this orc alive anyway?
Look, the shot was incredibly unrealistic, but you sinned it for being convenient because of them wanting to question the orc. And that's bullshit, because Tauriel was obviously specifically aiming for the arrow and not the orc, because she wanted to save Legolas's life.
They're being led on by troublemakers.
Then we must find these troublemakers.
There was a huge pause in the conversation while the master got up, walked out of his bedroom, and halfway down the stairs before responding.
Or, and hear me out, maybe the movie just cut to them walking, and the implication is that he responded normally and the audio is simply overlaid on them walking.
Wait, does this family shit directly into the lake?
Yes. Next question.
How many weapons does this guy need to carry? Couldn't they just pass them down to the stair dwarves outside and make a quiet pile?
But that would take a lot longer than having everyone carry a bunch of weapons with them. They're going for speed.
We've lost the light. There's no more to be done.
Bull. We walked all this f***ing way and nearly died 1,000,000 times. Give me the f***ing key and I'll drag it along the rock until it hits a keyhole.
The point is that the door is magic. It doesn't matter if you drag the key along every single inch of the wall, you still wouldn't find it.
Oh, now we see why it took so long for Boffer to get the King's Foil. It's so that She-Elf could save Handsome Dwarf and serve the love story.
This is the exact same sin as you had before, when you sinned the timing of Boffer finding the King's Foil. Stop double dipping.
If Toriel doesn't show up, how do they expect to use the King's Foil? It looks like it requires a lot of chanting and special elf leg rubbing and glowing.
In the Fellowship of the Ring, Aragorn gives Frodo some King's Foil, and it sustains him until they get to Rivendell. Obviously, the King's Foil helps without the elven magic, but it's more effective with it.
It's almost like they wrote the script for the dwarves to escape and then designed the set to match. Jesus, it's like the world's most elaborate dragon escape system built centuries in advance of its being needed.
Holy shit. He sinned the same things multiple times so much in this video, I'm just gonna add 10 sins and move on.
No, I sure hope Legolas lives through this. Oh wait, he's in Fellowship, so this is a pointless bit of fluff.
But we don't know what happens to Bolg, so it's possible that he could die.
Fire-resistant, fire-escaping rope.
It's a metal cable, so why the fuck should the fire be burning it?
Oh sure, now use your fire.
Double dipping.
Fire! Use your fire!
And triple dipping.
Sure was lucky the dwarves were working on a giant gold statue way back in the day.
They weren't. This is what our dwarves were doing to fight Smaug. The fact that it falls apart into a pool of molten gold should be the tip-off.
What the f*** is this bull?
It's gold melting. Seriously, little kids understood this shit.
There was finna be that hell to pay. HTP, back when I swore to the GOD to be the TBE, the best ever to be a real MC. Rapping violent like an LMG, spit it alphabetical, LMNOP. I've been OC with a pen I mean, and never cease to defeat my enemies. Don't let them breathe, I'm getting even coming with a head of steam.
Get it poppin', get the drink. Hold up, bitches wildin' when the gang showed up. Swear they gotta know the name, they gotta show up. I've been flexing on these lanes, I got it sold up. Get it poppin', get the drink. Hold up, bitches wildin' when the gang showed up. Swear they gotta know the name, they gotta show up. I've been flexing on these lanes, I got it sold up. Yo, ain't no debate, I've been playing.
Here's Smaug, pissed off at the dwarves, taking everything out on the townspeople of Lake Town for some reason.
Because he thinks that the dwarves care about the people of Lake Town. This is not the movie making a mistake, it's a character within the movie making a mistake. Moreover, Smaug doesn't want to fight the dwarves anymore because he was already defeated by them once.
Nearly the entire town is on fire, but thankfully the armory was spared.
Coincidences like this happen all the time in real life though, so I don't understand why this is a sin.
After clearly devastating the town, Smaug continues his assault on the people who did him no wrong.
Okay, but you already sinned the fact that Smaug is taking his anger out on the wrong people, so this is an example of Jeremy double dipping.
Also, you teased this whole big thing with Smaug at the end of the last movie, only to have him take a couple fire-breathing passes at Lake Town and then die like a chump-ass?
Okay, I totally agree that what the movies did with the story and how it was structured was absolute shit. But the point of ending the Smaug plotline so early is to make room for the Battle of the Five Armies, which is the title sequence of this movie.
How long has Gandalf been in this cage? What if he has to pee? Has he had any food at all?
Simply asking questions does not count as a sin. There are probable answers to these questions, and while we don't know how long Gandalf has been in the cage, we can safely assume that he has been fed small portions, and as for peeing, he'd have to pee his pants.
I sure am glad they spent all this time on this love story. It turned this B-list dwarf into, like, only the third dwarf I can remember in this movie.
I have no problem with sinning this love story because it wasn't in the book, but you literally just said that the plotline served its purpose, and yet you still sinned it, which is dumb.
Where's the master?
Halfway down the Anduin.
How is it that random townsfolk number 1 saw Bard slay the dragon, but absolutely no one was around to see the dragon fall on the master of Lake Town? You mean to tell me that there are several people in the background here that didn't notice an upteen-ton dragon falling on the Master?
But you just said that the dragon was upteen tons, so those people who were close to the Master probably either died or were injured from the fall.
This dwarf notices something he can't possibly notice, hundreds of feet below, and at an angle that is not conducive to noticing things.
The fuck does this bullshit even mean? An angle that's not conducive to noticing things? What? He looked down and saw Thorin. That's it. What's so unrealistic about it?
What gold is in that mountain is cursed. We will take only what was promised to us.
Because that gold is not cursed.
Holy shit, what don't you understand about the concept of greed? The curse only affects what isn't rightfully yours. The curse is greed. If you only take what was promised to you, you're not giving in to your greed.
Tolo Tauriel. Hirnin, Glenn Tauriel.
I decided to keep that from both of you until it was dramatic enough to reveal.
But why would he immediately say that Tauriel has been banished? The only reason he's there is to summon Legolas back to his father, and when Legolas told her to join him, that's when he revealed this. It makes perfect sense.
When you see Galadriel do this, you realize what a selfish elf she's been throughout both trilogies. She had all this power to help people out, and here's the only time she uses her power ever.
First of all, that's a lie. She uses her power in the Fellowship of the Ring to help Frodo. Also, we're shown in this very movie that using her power drains her energy and is actually dangerous to her, so if she used it too willy-nilly, she could actually possibly die.
Sauron introduces himself via the Lord of the Rings masturbation poem.
Sinning this poem is worth at least 100 sins.
Elrond and Saruman apparently have the ability to strike ghosts with their physical weapons. And since these ghosts are the ring wraiths in Lord of the Rings, I don't quite understand where they go after they get hit. Do they become extra ghosts or something?
I agree that this fight is kinda confusing, but you also sin the fact that their physical weapons are affecting ghosts, and the answer is magic. It's really not that hard to get.
Literal Eye of Sauron shows up here, making much of the previous trilogy's first movie seem kinda stupid, but whatever.
How the fuck does this make the first movie stupid? Seriously, how does this make any sense?
Galadriel shows two superpowered wizards what real power looks like, completely undermining their power in the LOTR trilogy and making me wonder why she did nothing to help in that entire 3-movie war against Sauron.
Jeremy double dips Ex Machina cliché. Also, what the fuck do you mean she undermines their power? Like, yeah, she's more powerful than them, but I don't see why that's a sin.
Without the Ring of Power, Sauron can never again...
So, you knew about the Ring of Power and knew his name was Sauron here, but Gandalf still needs to stop years later upon reaching for the ring to go and research what the f the ring is and shit?
Okay, this is the point of the video where you start to realize that Jeremy doesn't know shit about the LOTR universe. 9 rings were given to men, 7 to dwarves, and 3 to elves, plus Sauron's ring. That's a lot of fucking rings, and Sauron's ring has been lost for almost 3,000 years at this point, so Gandalf has absolutely no reason to suspect that Bilbo's ring is actually Sauron's.
Her strength is failing. Take her to Lothlorien,
where she'll stay for 60 years, earning a reputation as an elf witch of terrible power, who decides not to ask any questions about Sauron ever again.
So the basis of this sin is that she never pursues Sauron after this, but that's stupid, because at the end of this very scene, Saruman says that he will deal with Sauron, and Galadriel obviously trusts Saruman, so she had no reason to actively go after Sauron herself.
How did 10 years pass, but Weta got worse at visual effects?
There are so many better places where you could have put this in, but you chose this of all places? Really?
Came to reclaim something of mine. There are gems in the mountain that I too desire.
What? How did elf gems get into the Lonely Mountain?
This question required 5 seconds of research. Boom, that's the answer.
Begone! Ere our arrows fly!
Okay, maybe this is argumentative, but isn't this a clear case where the non-Thorin dwarves could talk some sense into this guy? And remove him from power if he continues to have a treasure boner that clouds his thoughts?
First, they do try to talk sense into him, but he refuses to listen. And the reason they don't remove him from power is because not only would that be treason, but Thorin is also their friend. They love him and don't want to turn against him, especially if it would lead to violence. And second, Jeremy says boner.
The Arkenstone. One of them has taken it.
Why is Thorin so certain one of his fellow dwarves have taken the Arkenstone, and his paranoia hasn't focused on Bilbo, the guy who was in the treasure room longer than anyone? Yeah, he's underestimating it.
Hold up, let's stop right there. You just undercut your argument all by yourself. You didn't even need me to do it for you.
This is the gateway to reclaiming the lands of Angmar in the north.
Sounds important. Too bad I don't know what it means. Earlier, Legolas was talking about how important this Gundabad place was when it came to Angmar. Now the Lonely Mountain is the most important place again.
Or, and hear me out, because I'm going to be explaining rocket science, maybe both places are important.
So he's referring to the wereworms, which, honestly, I'd rather see how they negotiated to ally with these things rather than them being a surprise later.
Why are you assuming that they made an alliance with the worms, instead of, just controlling them?
This is a fight they cannot win.
That won't stop them.
Bilbo, you didn't hear that.
Why the fuck not?
Basically, the Battle of the Five Armies is a recreation on a much larger scale of the Anchorman fight in Anchorman.
Jeremy makes a pop culture reference that isn't a sin of the movie cliche.
So the elves decide at the last minute to not be total dicks and save the day. I honestly didn't expect that, if only because it's a well Peter Jackson has gone back to so many times he has his mail forwarded there.
So you're sinning the fact that the movie did something unexpected? What the fuck?
When we were little, my brother and I used to set up army men on opposite ends of the room.
Skip.
I saw them! They were down in the old market!
Thanks, random woman. Your amazing knowledge is only surpassed by your amazing hearing in the middle of all this commotion.
At this point, I'm convinced that Jeremy is half deaf, because he always seems to think that people shouldn't be able to hear shit that's said in totally plausible hearing distance.
Again, the elf flies in at the last second to not be a total asshole.
What do you mean the elf flies in to not be a total asshole? The first time you mentioned the elves not being assholes, it made sense, because they were helping the dwarves. But this scene is not showing Thranduil saving anyone. He's just fighting by himself.
Azog has been doing nothing but narrate every time we see his dumbass.
Jeremy doesn't realize that he is Azog.
Oh no, 13 more dwarves.
The point is that they're rallying to their king. He's an inspiration for the army.
Suddenly, everyone has rams. Their fellow dwarves didn't bring them, and neither did the elves, so who had them?
There are some deleted scenes with the rams in them, because the dwarves used them to pull their war machines, so that's where they came from.
Why would you dismount the super-fast giant goat of destruction?
Because they're in close quarters now, and there's not enough room to effectively ride the rams.
Ravenhill.
Authorities up there. And Philly and Killy, they're all up there.
Oh no, Thorn and the others might only just now be in danger.
But the movie explains that Ravenhill is about to be completely overrun by an army of orcs, so the dwarves who are currently there are about to be surrounded.
Meanwhile, in this cutaway, you'll forget Thorin is horribly outnumbered and should probably be dead around Orc 13 or 14 or so.
I agree with this sin, but you've already sinned it, so double dipping yet again. This fake-ass laugh. Holy shit, okay, that was actually really fucking funny. Take a sin off.
What we saw was so fake that it can't even register as cool or an adrenaline rush. I don't think I could be more offended even if Peter Jackson rode into the theater on a horse and started beating us with that carrot he always eats in these movies.
Okay, I loved the joke you made just a second ago, and I obviously agree with your point, but you've already sinned this. Stop double dipping.
Here come the eagles, still clearly worried about those men and their great bows of yew, which would have shot them down if they brought Gandalf and crew closer to the Lonely Mountain. Can't we just admit they only show up when the story calls for it?
No, the eagles are sentient, which means that when they don't want to do something, they won't.
Beorn jumps off the eagle and turns himself into a bear, which allows him to survive this jump.
And your point is? Seriously, this is a supernatural bear in a fantasy movie, and you're sinning the fact that it survives a high fall? Come on, man.
I bet you thought after we gave the last thing 2 sins because of this, that we wouldn't sin this, but you're wrong.
Admitting to your double dipping does not excuse it.
Go north. Find the Dunedain. There's a young ranger amongst them. You should meet him.
No. Look, I'm already giving lots of leeway here that Aragorn is at least 60 in The Lord of the Rings kicking all that ass. But this bullshit right here is an absolutely ludicrous way to connect the 2 movie trilogies.
No, Aragorn is not 60. He's 80. The elves gifted him a long life, which is how he can still kick all that ass at such an old age.
Why bother to tell your elf son to go find a human boy? Out of all the places and people to suggest he should spend time. You don't even have to read the books to find this offensive in every way. Besides, in Fellowship, it's not until they get to the Council of Elrond that they even meet. Not one scene in that movie suggests they had a long history together.
Hold up. Slow down with all the bullshit. First, the reason he tells Legolas to find Aragorn is because he both respects Aragorn and knows that he is the heir to the throne of Gondor, which is pretty damn important. And second, the fuck do you mean the first movie never suggested Aragorn and Legolas had a history together? That's a straight up lie. Remember this scene?
And what would a ranger know of this matter? This is no mere ranger.
He is Aragorn, son of Arathorn. You owe him your allegiance.
This is Isildur's heir.
And heir to the throne of Gondor. Dad, Legolas.
Look, I haven't been able to find anything confirming that this is Bryan Cranston, but wouldn't it be just like a f***ing movie to put him here for 5 seconds and then pretend he doesn't exist?
A whole bunch of bullshit.
He does exactly what I do, but better.
Living fast, I might crash, not my time yet. Cameras flash on my ass, that's a vibe check. Hit the dash, need the cash, hope I'm fine, yeah. I'm slowing down, making use of my time left. Living fast, I might crash, not my time yet. Cameras flash on my ass, that's a vibe check. Hit the dash, need the cash, hope I'm fine, yeah. Slowing down, making use of my time left.